Welcome to Shop Talk, where we chat about what's going on in our businesses right now, both what's exciting and what's challenging. When something exciting happens, we want to ensure we're taking a moment to recognize and celebrate our successes. And when things are challenging, talking through them to gather each other's perspective is often so insightful.
If you're going through any of these challenges at the moment as well, we hope that by sharing openly, you know you're not alone and that as business owners, we're all navigating this crazy journey together. So, welcome to the beginning of 2025. Where are we at? How did we
Wow,
get here?
we're already in the middle of January, which is like, wait, what?
I know. I know.
And just in sitting here, like reading through my own introduction, taking a moment to recognize and celebrate our successes is probably the thing that I'm the worst at.
Mm.
I am always so like head down, full speed ahead that like something really exciting happened this week. And if it weren't for my friend sharing it all over social media so that I can just hit repost, again, no one would know about it. I went to the event, we took pictures, I had a great time, and the magazine is sitting here next to me. But if it weren't for her, I would be like, but like it's almost in the past, like forgotten about. I'm so bad at this.
It's almost like, oh, yeah, I had a baby this year. Like I
Well,
used
and also like I'm watching you like post like share like celebrating all your birthdays and anniversaries. Like you are so good at celebrating. And every time I see you posting about that, I'm always like, I wish I was better at this. Like I really do want to be better, but it's like I need somebody to do it for me because it's just like I'm not going to do it for myself. And I can't like change that about myself, even if I wish I could.
we can always just what's the first step? It's like the step of the process is recognition or whatever. So you
Or
are
awareness of the problem
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
yeah, whatever. Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely aware. So happy anniversary. Did you have a good trip?
Everybody knows when it's my birthday, when it's my anniversary, when it's my kids' birthdays, when it's my husband's birthday, how long I've been in business. Like I have all of those celebrations coming at me.
Brianna's like an excuse to sip champagne. Sign
I'm
me up. Yes.
done. All that and more. So yeah, thank you. I had my anniversary this week, which is always like for me a fun like celebratory. I used to think that I would go on a big trip every year, and then I realized that January and big trips don't really go together that well. So this time it was just like a quick getaway. So anyway, that's what I celebrated this week. Why don't you tell us what you are celebrating this week?
I was really trying to get past it.
Yeah.
So I think I might have mentioned it on a previous call, but my dearest friend and most fabulous client, even my team, Tori and Aaron, they are just like, we love Carla so much. Carla is just a gem of a human. She's just the most beautiful writer. She went out kind of freelance. She made the decision on a trip I sent her. I sent her to Costa Rica. And she came home and she was like, I'm quitting my job. And I was like, oh, it was
Okay.
that kind of vacation, was it?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember how long ago that was. That might have been like 6 years ago. And now she is just thriving. And like I think in her most recent Substack, she said she had like 35 articles published like in the last week or two. Like she is just a machine of a writer, but she writes so beautifully. And in chatting with her about my rebrand, she was a really big inspiration to how I started to articulate what I wanted the rebrand to kind of look and feel like, because she is the perfect client in that she always comes to me and just says, this is what I'm looking for. Where am I going next?
Mm.
She never comes to me with a destination or with a plan or with flights already booked, nothing like that. She always like comes to me fully open and we kind of narrow it down. Like, what season are we looking for? What are the vibes we're looking for? What's the purpose of the trip? Are you wanting an adventure? Are you wanting to try something new? Are you wanting something to challenge you? Are you wanting to rest and relax? Like, what are we looking for? Right. And then I send her ideas. I usually send her 3 or 4 ideas and just kind of in paragraph form. Like, I'm not making 3 or 4 proposals of custom trips. You know what I mean? I'm saying like ideas. I mean, like this time it was Southern Spain, like a custom FIT style trip, an expedition cruise in Alaska, or a custom trip to Japan.
Mm.
And along with these ideas, I'm just writing like 3 or 4 sentences to her of saying, like, based on everything we talked about, this is why
Hmm.
these are the ideas I have for you and that I want to share with you. And she is such a beautiful spirit and that she's always looking to like have something to challenge her to kind of step
Mhm.
outside her comfort zone and try something new. She's this kind of person. Like she's always looking for that opportunity. And so she in southern Spain, I was like, there are some hikes available that would be physically challenging. And I shared those with her. I said, for the expedition cruise in Alaska, I was like, this will challenge your what you think you know about cruises. Because she went on like a horrible cruise and hated it. So she feels like I'll never step foot on a cruise again. And I'm like, actually, I think that you would love Lindblad in Alaska specifically. She loves back roads for context. And I was like, so this will challenge like the ideas you think you have about cruising. And I said, Japan is going to challenge you mentally. Like you're going to have a little bit of culture shock. You're going to love it. She studied Japanese in high school. So she's not like totally,
Mm.
against the idea. And so these were ideas for her. And I just kind of usually how I do this with clients, but especially with Carla, is I write 3 or 4 sentences about each. And I just kind of say, like, this is what's on my mind. These are why I'm thinking of these ideas for you. This is, here's kind of my pitch for this destination or this style of trip. And then she chose Southern Spain and we planned it and we booked it. And what's so beautiful is that I do this with quite a few clients, especially those that I've been working with for a long time. And with Carla or with everyone, it's never these are bad ideas and this is the good one. So let's go with this one. It's always like, oh man, I love all of these. Save these 2 ideas for later, but this is the one that I'm excited to like book right now.
Right.
So Carla wrote an article about this experience.
That is
And
so cool.
yeah,
I need some writers in my client my book of business. That is
so
amazing.
so it's the DSM magazine. So it's a local magazine here in Des Moines.
Okay.
And the magazine is just super cool. It comes out only 6 times per year, so like every other month is kind of the cadence. And it's about local food, local art, local culture, like always highlighting local businesses and kind of what's going on. And so she, I think, has an article in just about every DSM magazine, if not more than one.
Mm.
So you can always find her writing in this magazine among many others. But the magazine just they have an unveiling party for every magazine because it's only coming out 6 times a year. So they kind of
Right.
like make it a party. So that was Monday night. And we went and I got the magazine and the articles in there and feedback has been really awesome. And it's just super, super cool to like see, like how Carla and I's like client advisor relationship has grown, how our
Yeah.
friendship has grown. And now it's in the magazine and people are loving it.
That
And
is
it's
so
all aligned with like my new branding. And
so
so it's just,
aligned. It's like there's just like all the things that like make this even more special. Like it would be cool to get a write up regardless, right? I mean, that's cool. It's great PR, blah, 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 blah. But
mhm,
the idea that like it came from her unique experience of working with you and that long-term relationship that has been built to show how well you actually are and advise, like you advise. Like this
mhm,
isn't
mhm,
just you planned a good trip.
mhm.
You were her advisor and you presented experiences to her based on what you knew about her and she could like bring that to life in beautiful language that we could probably never like do justice to ourselves in the same way because that's not our gift. Well,
Right.
not my gift.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's yours, but
No, no, absolutely not. I tried to not mention it. Not my gift.
don't ask me about what I do. I'd rather not say. I'd rather just put my head down and do the work.
Exactly. Seriously. I don't want to talk about the work. I want to do the work.
Yeah, yeah. So what a cool thing. And
Yeah.
so like the fact that she's in your community and
Yes.
that that's a part of what you do as well, which is really cool and really special. It's something I don't really have like a foot in the door in, Newport Beach. I don't know. It's hard to get your foot in the door here, man. But that's really cool. Super cool.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. And I think that this kind of segues to the challenging part quite a bit. And also it's very fresh in my mind because we just had a call for our advisor accelerator that is all about like leaning into what is on brand for you to share or not share about your experience that you create for clients or about the destinations that you travel to. And I brought this up because in the advisor accelerator, because I'm personally struggling with it.
Mhm.
And if I'm struggling with it, I don't think that you are, but I think you would say differently because like I know what you're on brand for, but when I ask you what you're on brand for, you don't say those things. So that's an interesting dichotomy
It's
I experienced
interesting.
in our call just now.
You're so right. It's like I feel like I almost got like a deer in the headlights situation.
I always put Brianna on the spot in our calls. Like if I ever want to challenge anybody or just kind of warm up my, like challenging muscles, I'm like, hey, Brianna. And you're always the victim. I'm sorry. You should turn it back around to me sometimes when I'm not expecting it. But I think that I think what's kind of started me down this path is I've just rebranded. I'm really excited about it. And now I have 3 trips on the calendar in the next 90 days that I am so, so excited for because they are so aligned with where I want to send clients, the type of content I want to be sharing, the type of destinations that I'm already booking a lot of and I want to book more. And so it is just so top of mind of like, how can I translate this new branding and this article that was just, that just came out? How can I translate this into content, marketing wise, but not just content for South Africa, Japan, and Italy? Like not just how do I share these 3 trips? How do I come up with my marketing strategy that is cohesive and starts to be predictable, not only for myself and my marketing manager, but predictable for my audience. So they start to know what to expect from me. And I start creating this atmosphere of like, oh, that's very on brand for Whitney. Of like, oh, Whitney's going to Japan. I can't wait to see what she tells us about X, Y, and Z because that's on brand for her. We're expecting that from her. I don't think that my audience is expecting anything from me yet. And that is my challenge to solve.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like the challenge that's coming from this really awesome rebrand. And it's now it's like, okay, how do I put this into action with the marketing content?
Right. And I think that that's a couple of cool things that hopefully people are catching on to. Number one is that there is so much, we all are usually, what I see, what I hear, what I kind of get from other advisors is focused on the marketing strategy before we've refined and are clear on the branding strategy. And the
Yeah.
branding strategy is what informs and directs the marketing strategy. So it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. So
Mm-hmm.
where you're at now, which is the correct kind of like order of it all, is that you've went through a rebrand and you're like, now I have this beautiful branding. I'm creating this brand strategy. How am I using this to now drive the marketing strategy moving forward with my upcoming trips and the content that I'm producing and all of that kind of stuff? So that's the one thing. And then the second thing is super aligned with just kind of like the conversations we've been having in the Advisor Accelerator is that, okay, great. We know what our brand is. We know what it stands for. We know the problem that we solve. Can we come up with these, what we're calling predictable talking points, so that not only are we reinforcing this message, but that our audience learns to know what to expect from us and that it is obviously our brand, our point of view coming through. There's so many things that we can say about a trip to South Africa, for instance. So many things we can share, so many things we can say, but like the repeatability and the predictability is what makes people remember, oh, that's Undiscovered Sunsets. That's
Yes.
Smoke and Honey. And so
Yes.
when we, in the advisor community or just brands at large, when we start to pay attention to the content that they're putting out, to the things that they talk about, I believe that you can really look and see, like, you know what? Like, I know what to expect from them. I know if they go here, if they do this, this is the kind of content they're going to share. It's going to be in alignment and it's going to kind of be the same things over and over in different ways. You're coming at the same point from different perspectives, but you're actually, if you take a look and kind of analyze it and break it all down, you're saying the same thing over and over and over again. That's how you remember that
Mm-hmm.
brand. That's how you kind of like, it sticks out in your mind. That's how you, when you see something from them, you know immediately it's them, even if it doesn't say it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yes.
what we want for ourselves. And it's so intentional. And it's hard to kind of like, if you're not used to creating content that way or developing your marketing strategy that way, can be a little bit like, where do I start? How do I get started? What do I do? How do I make this plan?
Well, and I think that what we have been experiencing and what we've been kind of like pushing the envelope a little bit with everyone in the Advisor Accelerator is that it's so natural when we ask everyone, like, why you? Why your business? Why should someone work with you? What's your brand? Everyone is coming back with the same thing. I create unique experiences, seamless logistics, off the beaten
Save
path,
time.
luxury, save time, and all of this is good. There's nothing wrong with all of these things. We all do all of these things
You should,
and
if
should.
you're
I
any
mean,
good
I
at your
assume.
job.
But what's most important is that when we write a paragraph with these types of things to describe our business, I will read that and
Remember
I
it.
can't even remotely guess who it's about in our Advisor Accelerator community because it could literally be anyone. It could be me.
It could be anyone. But if I say, what advisor loves a beautiful bathtub in their hotel and will go and check out every luxury spa possible, who would you say?
Kate Sullivan.
So she has predictable talking points. We know what she stands for. We know what she likes. I mean, she's a great example because I do think she has a very strong brand, but there are reasons why you should, what does it say? Oh, you know me.
And I figured you haven't done this in a while. Here she comes, guys. She's gonna butcher a phrase, and we're gonna try to figure it out. It feels like charades.
Yeah. If you stand for nothing, never
Oh,
mind. Now I lost
if you stand for crap, what is
something.
it?
You stand for nothing. I don't
If you
know.
stand for nothing, you stand for something.
But that's not what I'm trying to say.
Stand for
Anyway,
something. If those who stand for nothing fall for anything, is what's coming up in my Google
okay.
search, but that's not,
Exactly what I'm trying to say. Anyway,
yeah.
I actually just want to say is that back to the point of like the generic points. There's nothing wrong with the fact that you create seamless travel experiences. There's nothing wrong with the fact that you
We
save your clients
expect
time.
that. I
It's
feel like that's like foundational. Like we
they're
expect it.
expected, but also like who the F wants the opposite? I am not looking for a travel advisor who wastes my time. I'm not looking for a travel advisor who makes things more complicated and chaotic. So the thing that you're saying isn't attracting or repelling because there's not an opposite to it. It's not a point of view. And so coming up with your predictable talking points requires some sort of like uniqueness and bold point of view that is going to make people remember it and associate it with you and your brand.
Yes. Yes. So what is it for us? What is it for me, Brianna? Can you give me the answer?
Right.
I think I know what it is. I think I'm like heading in the right direction, but I don't have it like into an elevator pitch style, like super succinct, super concise, super articulate type of response.
Right. So first, let's just make sure that people understand, like, here's what we're asking you to do because we're doing the same thing. And it's an important part of
It's
your
like an ongoing live
ongoing
challenge,
thing. You
folks.
take this branding strategy and then this is what is going to drive and be the foundation for your marketing strategy is that you take these talking points, they should be predictable, they should be on brand, they should relate to the problem that you're solving, and then you rotate through these talking points in your content. So that they become consistent and so that they become predictable. That's the only way that they're going to be consistent and predictable is if you consistently and predictably talk about them. And it's such a foundational part of our branding strategy that many people can easily kind of bypass because it is a little tricky and it can be hard until you actually probably land on them. And then you're like, I could talk about this all day. I could talk about this 3 ways on Sunday. And
So what's easy for me? It was actually easier for me is I know what I'm not going to talk about.
Also important.
Right? Like, so maybe, I don't know if this is a good little on the fly exercise of like, if you can't figure out what you will talk about, make a list of what you won't talk about. Like, I have children and I travel with my children. I'm not going to talk about family friendly travel because I don't plan my travels around my kids. They just do what I do. So, and that's not feasible for most families. That wouldn't be considered family friendly.
Like, what you're saying is, I'm saying leave it at home, Susan.
What you're saying
It's
is you're going on
possible.
a 32-hour journey with 2 stops and you're all staying in one room and there's no parks or kids clubs involved. And no, this is not considered family friendly. There just happen to be children here.
Yeah.
And they're fine, folks. They're doing great.
They lived to tell another, to live another day.
So you won't see me talking about the fanciest hotels in any destination.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know about them. I want to learn about them. I want to professionally be equipped to recommend or not recommend them. Like professionally, I want to know about them. It's not going to be a part of my content.
Yeah, same. I know that like specific hotels, unless it's just something that like indelibly made a mark in my trip,
And there are a few. There are a few that yes.
You're not going to like Milk and Honey to be like the hot new openings in January 2025. I don't freaking know.
So this is actually easier for me. When I talk about a hotel, it will specifically be because the hotel itself is part of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Staying in a particular hotel added to the overall experience of my trip. And when you ask me when I get home to think back of like, hey, what were the highlights of that trip? If that hotel stay was a highlight of my trip for whatever reason that it was, that's when you're going to see me talking about a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just staying at a hotel because, yeah, it's the nicest in this area and it's a great location and the service is great and the views are great. And, if that's not what I'm going to be talking about.
And it's
That's not
fine
on brand for me.
if you're the opposite. Like there are the people who are on the leaderboards of
Oh,
Four
oh
Seasons,
yeah.
whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that I hope that they're talking about Four Seasons as much as they're selling them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm not on the leaderboard. So yeah,
Oh, yeah, this is absolutely not a positive or a negative.
no.
I'm trying to very specifically hone in on what's my brand and what's not.
Well, I think there's something, and it has to be a little bit wordsmith, but I'm kind of going back to what I know about like even your origin story. Is going to have something to do with one of your predictable talking points, I'm pretty sure, is this idea of like the opposite of like what the guidebook is going to say. It is like, oh, Lonely Planet will show you how to visit a place this way. I'm interested in showing you how to visit a place this way. There's something to the effect of like, you understand this like highlight reel of a destination, which is normally what you get from guidebooks. But this is also the reason why, like, when you had that experience, you were so turned off and you were like, there has to be a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like one of the kind of like core stories of like your starting point.
I mean, something in my marketing is working because my origin story.
And I think it's also like part of one of your predictable talking points on like why you have that viewpoint and how that is going to show up in your clients' journeys. Like you are going to pull out of them what's going to matter to their experience and make sure that shows up in a way that speaks to their interests and has nothing to do with what Lonely Planet says. Now, It's going to be more of a succinct talking point than that, but it is going to have probably something to do with that essence because that's really important to you. And it's not what every advisor is hanging their hat on. Some advisors are hanging their hat on like getting the best access to the Louvre. And you're like, don't even bother going to the Louvre.
I would say that. Like if a client ever asks me, is this a must see? I'll be like, if you're asking, then no. The answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
A client just asked, like, I always mention Pompeii, like for anybody coming in and out of Amalfi for the first time. And I'm always just like, hey, I want you to realize like this is here, this is available. It's a 2-hour stop. It doesn't take a full day, but like if this interests you. And some people are like, oh yes, we definitely want to do that. And then a client just this week, she was like, is this a must see? And I was like, if you ask that question, then the answer is no. We're going to take it out. If you ask me, like, do we have to go to the Vatican? Absolutely not. Do we need to see the Louvre? If you're asking, then no, we're going to find something else that interests you more. Mm-hmm. I will be the first to say you don't have to do any of these things.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested, if you're genuinely curious, you absolutely should. And then I'm going to help you do it in the best way possible, right? To like really make sure you have a good experience. I'm never going to make you feel like there's something that everyone's talking about and that you have to go.
There's like FOMO involved if you don't do it. So that's a predictable talking point. And it can show up in a lot of ways. And so once you decide on this 3 to 5, I would say, predictable talking points, what you do, again, like I said, how do they remain consistent and predictable? And then when you're thinking of content creation, especially if you are going on a trip and you have the opportunity to really like lean in far more than we do on a day-to-day basis, just sitting in front of our computers trying to come up with content. You're like, okay, so how do I show this in real time? How do I show this from different perspectives? How do I speak this in a way that people like really get it? And so taking in a content idea and saying, okay, well, one way I can do it is like showing the behind the scenes of how I'm building this personalized itinerary for this specific client who has this, where we had a specific conversation, and they can see kind of like the start to finish of it. Well, another way might be like a carousel post, kind of like just showcasing like your, things you could do in Paris, things that I would do in Paris.
I was thinking of that. Yeah. Like if you Google this, here's what they'll tell you. Here's what I would share with you. Like,
yes. And then it could also be like sharing testimonials when a client comes back from an experience they had, and like the meaningful experiences to them, like what kind of difference that made in their trip, right? All three of those posts are saying the same message. They're saying it in different ways. And so when you come up with your point, then you start to think through how can the content support and point back to that point, which is the strategy, I guess, behind it all.
I'm glad we're recording this because I'm not taking notes, but I will say, that your idea, it works really well with an email template that I just updated. And this is something that I've been meaning to do for 3 years or something ridiculous. And I finally did it. So I wanted to break apart my welcome home feedback request kind of situation. And so when clients are leaving, I send a bon voyage email that really just says, bon voyage, today's the day. Have a great trip. We'll be here if you need anything. Like super short, but I very specifically schedule the email to land in their inbox like 90 minutes before their flight takes off, which means that I know that they're either in the lounge or at the gate. Right? Like that's the experience.
I got fast track and clear, so I'm still on the road. But anyway, go on.
For an international trip, you're still on the road at 90 minutes. And LA is just a shit show. Are you kidding me?
I mean, okay, you are correct in that. Like because if you go at the wrong time, like even just pulling around.
That is so anxiety inducing if anyone's ever driven, not flown through LA, but driven into LA. So we stopped in LA.
Literally take 45 minutes to an hour just to get around the U.
There was so we used to live in LA. So LAX used to be our airport. Now we flew through LA. We stayed for 36 hours on our way to Fiji. And so we did this. We got an Uber from our hotel to take us into LAX. And as we started making that round, I started feeling like PTSD of like, I remember when I almost missed my flight and I could see the airport, but it took like 30 minutes to get from point to point I was so close to getting out and like walking, except it's like a freeway. It's not just like a small road. It's like a freeway. And I like started like feeling the anxiety that I used to living there of like, do we leave 6 hours early or 3 hours early? Or just do we go the night before? Because we just don't know.
You never know. And then, that is definitely the LAX experience.
You're telling me you fly in, you scoot in 90 minutes early. Okay, you're out of your mind. Anyways, here's my email template. So tell me if this is on brand.
Yeah.
So because I do that for the Bon Voyage, I used to send the welcome home like 2 or 3 days after they get back. So like, okay, you've gotten home. Hopefully you've got at least one load of laundry in. This is kind of what I'm imagining, right? How was your trip? What were the highlights? If we did this all over again, what would you do differently? And I was like, what I really want to do is, since I'm asking them that 3 days later, sometimes I get a response and sometimes I don't, but then I don't also want to ask like, how was my service? So I'm sending the fun questions when I'm predicting that they're at the airport, checked in for their flight home. Asking them which hotel was your favorite and why, which experiences really exceeded expectations. And if we plan this trip all over again, what might you do differently? So that they're not even home yet. They're not back in their normal lives yet. They're still like a little bit in vacation mode and like really getting it when like all of their thoughts and feelings and emotions about the trip are kind of fresh. Asking about like these favorite moments. And so I hope that coming into like content and sharing testimonials and sharing feedback from clients, I can say like, this is what clients shared from their 2-week trip in Vietnam. Like, this is what stood out to them.
Mhm.
It wasn't the museum, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or maybe
Mhm.
it was, but like, like these are the types of experiences that we're like arranging and planning for them. And in, like these little moments that we're infusing into their trip. Like, I think one for this honeymoon couple that's coming home is we did a blessing ceremony in Hanoi and they're on their honeymoon. So they like
Mhm.
went to a temple to do a blessing ceremony. And I think that this is one of the things that they're going to say. It was literally a 15-minute experience. It
Out
was
of like,
15
yeah,
minutes of a 2-week trip.
right.
So like so I'm hoping that this email will elicit some
That was,
responses
yeah.
that then help me share that then kind of feels on brand with like,
Right.
you
Yes.
don't have to do all these things because Lonely Planet tells you to.
Exactly. So the important thing there is like you're pulling out what was meaningful to them, and sharing that shows potential clients, your audience, what have you, that it's more than you saying like, here's the trip we planned for these clients. It's them saying, here's what was meaningful about the trip she planned for us. And look at how in alignment that is with like the things that you talk about, like what matters to you when it comes to travel. So that's how it makes it on brand, and
Yeah.
hopefully gives you more of that content to be able to use from, the client's point of view.
Yeah. That's my hope is. I just started implementing this, so I don't
Yeah.
have like fresh
We'll,
feedback yet, but
we'll see how it turns out.
this is ongoing. It's an ongoing kind of challenge. So how's marketing and content? I know that in our last call, I think you mentioned that you're kind of
Yeah.
trying some new things or kind of reconsidering strategy. Like, how's this going on your side?
Yeah, so I recently in the last couple of months had hired like a person to help me with like my marketing strategies, social media, LinkedIn, Pinterest, newsletter. So there's it's a pretty broad umbrella. It's not just social media, but there is like the brand messaging and the marketing strategy is the same for everything I do. That's my hope. And so the first couple of months is number one, her getting to know me, her getting to know my brand, and then me kind of thinking through, now that I'm looking at a month or two of the content that's come out, how is this working? And so it's exciting because it's consistent. It is actual strategy. It is somebody else like taking the ball and running with it. I have to, download my thoughts and whatnot, but then it actually happens. And I don't have to like, oh shoot, I got busy this week, or oh, I meant to send that, but I didn't. It's actually happening on a consistent level, which is a huge part of any strategy you have. It has to be consistent. Now, what I'm looking at is so much of what we're talking about and what we have been talking about in our advisor accelerator calls as well is like, okay, again, I know my talking points in that like I've always stood on the fact of like, you want me to tell you what's unique about me? Let me tell you, like I'm the most unique. I have so many, all these things. But then I'm looking at this content and I'm like, okay, that's a little generic. There's nothing wrong with it, but like, would I know that that's me? Would I say, oh, that's
Right,
totally what Brianna feels? Brianna as a
right,
the brand Milk and Honey, right? Not like just me
right.
personally.
Yeah.
So I have to go back to the drawing board, especially after we did all of these conversations and these talks in the Advisor Accelerator. I did the work for my own brand to be like,
Mhm.
I need to communicate to you that so we're clear, these are my talking points, and here's how I feel like we can make them stronger. And
Yep.
now we're starting to do that into like, okay, I need to be more specific. I've said some great general things, but who cares about general? How do I specifically show these like things that I think matter? How do I touch on how I'm making clients feel when they work with me? Because emotional connection is so important. What are the things that I can say that might be like the quote unquote hot takes, the bold statements that I'm like, you know what, you might disagree with that, and that is fine because I'm trying to attract and repel. And the more I do that strongly, the better my content is going to land with the right people. And so I'm
Let's dig into this a tiny bit
yes.
because in our conversations all during this month, a lot of us have been struggling with like, I know what I do, but I don't know how to get like my own true authenticity through. And so some things we've been trying to do to like pull it out of people, and I feel like it's kind of been working, is like I was asking, what do you feel super strongly about? What do you feel really opinionated about? Like if you look at another itinerary that someone has designed or that a DMC has done or that a tour operator has done, what's going to like get you going and be like, no, I wouldn't do it that way. I wouldn't do it that way. I would have done this differently. I would have stayed somewhere different. Like what are those details that like kind of get you starting to feel a little passionate? And that worked for some, but then today you were kind of like, what's your hot take?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like make a bold statement that it's absolutely impossible to have a hot take that everyone agrees with. You are going to ruffle feathers. You are going to have people disagree with you. Do you feel like you have any hot takes?
I do. So here's what I'm thinking. So one of the things that I think that is, and maybe for our audience, it might be not as obvious, but I would say that like I am leaning more and more into the fact that popular destinations are just ridiculously overrated and not worth
Oh
it.
my gosh. You know what I said to somebody this week?
Huh.
Here's a hot take. The pricing in the Amalfi Coast for this summer is offensive.
It's offensive.
It's offensive.
It's offensive. So you want to go to the Amalfi Coast? You want to go to Santorini? I'm like, it's not the dreamy getaway you think it is. It's overcrowded. It's overpriced. It's not worth the hype. You're not going to meet anybody in Santorini that's actually Greek. They're going to have no like authentic connections. Same with Amalfi Coast. Same with freaking Lake Como. All of these places that people are like, it's on their vision board or like, you know, it's the most perfect place for a honeymoon. It's so romantic. I'm like, it's Disneyland in another country. And that's not for
I,
me.
I literally have told people this week, I think you should wait a few years to go to the Amalfi Coast because these prices need to relax. My favorite hotels, so I've actually been there personally. I've stayed at them. I was just in Italy 2 years ago. I'm not selling any of them this year. I'm telling my clients, these are my favorite hotels. They aren't worth these prices. We are not spending 4 grand a night for this room that is 30 square meters. Are you absolutely out of your mind? No,
Yeah.
no. If you really, 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 really want to go to Amalfi Coast this summer, I'm going to plan it for you and I'm going to help maximize that experience. And we're going to find somewhere else to stay. And I found some options that at least feel palatable. They're still insanely expensive, but I'm managing those expectations. Like, listen, in a different year, I'd put you over here. But that's my hot take. I will be the first to tell you, like, that is not worth that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that's one of the top hotels. I understand when you Google Condé Nast and Travel and Leisure that this hotel comes up. I understand all of these things. At some point,
We got to be like,
I call it into question, and
yeah.
I will do that.
And so I think that that's definitely a hot take. What I can lean into more now is how I'm expressing that with also my opinion on here's a better experience, right?
Yes.
Here's why I choose this over this. Here
Can you
is
give me an
a different way
example?
to, so like, I love Greece. I love Greek food. I love like the people. But I'm like freaking go to Paros. Go to any other island really, except Mykonos maybe.
Yeah.
Go to
Yeah.
a different island and like actually and still like Paros is
Still
not off the
expensive.
beaten path. It's
No,
not.
and it's
It's
still
unknown.
expensive, but it's like, at Cosme or something or Perilio or
Rio.
any of
Yeah,
these, like it's $1,000 a night or $1,200 a night instead of $3,000 a night. Like it's somehow it's palatable. And now what? That's normal for us. It is though.
I
I
know.
mean, like now $1,000 a night is like, yeah, that tracks. But when you start getting up to three, I'm just like, get out of here.
Yeah, yeah. It's stupid. So I think that would be like a hot take that I feel like I could lean into more.
Or Croatian Montenegro. I am selling a lot of Croatian Montenegro.
I need to get back to Croatia and I've never been to Montenegro, but I do think that that's like a good substitution or like
Yeah.
alternate option.
I need to get back there too. We need to do that together.
Yeah.
I feel like we'd be good travel buddies.
Yeah, because we don't need to do 17 hotel site inspections.
Thank God.
Maybe
That'd
that's
be
my hot
nice.
take as an advisor. I don't
Yeah.
effing need to see every room category. I don't need to see your whatever the rooms are that people
Meeting
meet in.
rooms.
I don't need to see what rooms connect. I don't want to see, like, I don't freaking care. I'll have a drink in your bar and get a sense of
I
the
was going to
vibe.
say, I will eat at your restaurant. I will drink in your bar.
I'll see what
I
the
will
like
go to your
service
spa. I
looks
want
like.
to,
Yeah.
yep. And I'll meet you. I want to meet the human.
Yeah, but
I
don't.
just don't, I don't need the connecting room. I need that like on the hive and in an
Yeah,
email, not,
yeah, not
not
in
while
my
I'm in
time. That's not what
destination.
that's not what I'm spending my time doing. So yes, there's that hot take. I'm a very like known anti anti museum, anti even like walking tour, to be honest with you. I don't have the personal interest that will last as long as a tour does. So if you give me an hour walking tour, maybe you'll keep my attention. Anything else, I'm like actively waiting for it to be over. So when I'm talking to clients, I'm like, guess what? Sitting in a cafe and people watching is just as much of a cultural experience as visiting the academia
Or more, or
or more.
more.
And so if you now, I'm working on like an itinerary right now. This guy is so geeked out over Roman history. He was like wanted to share it with me. And I'm like, honey, I could not care less.
I had a client tell me that he'll walk through museums until his feet fall off, and I was like, "That's not my style, but I got you. I mean,
Yeah,
I can
I hear
execute
you.
on that.
I
I
hear
can do
you.
that for you."
But I love giving people the permission. Say, I think this is similar to what you said of like, that is not necessary to enjoy a destination and to feel like you really got a sense of place while being there and to like really have it speak to your soul. You got to know that. Another thing, I want to taste a lot of wine. I could care less how it's made.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, yes.
I
I
don't,
cannot
I'm not a sommelier. I don't care the terroir. No, just sit me here with my glass full. Like,
I
really?
cannot I cannot tell you how many DMCs. Now, I enjoyed my first couple wine tours of like learning how it's done, and then I went on like my 3rd or 4th and I was like, "Oh, so it's just the same everywhere." Like
There's
it's
some
not.
vines, there's some
There's
grapes,
some
there's some
stomping.
stomping.
There's like they sit in
Telling
a
me
big,
about the
yeah.
different grapes that are in here. I don't care. Like what
There's
type
the
of wine?
skin contact. There's the, I mean,
All of that is number one, above my pay grade because I'm just not that into it. And number two, it's not enjoyable anymore. So what I
I
do want
want a
is a
beautiful terrace with
yes.
a view of the vineyards, sipping the wine, and hopefully a little snacky snack along with it. Like
Like,
when you tell me that you only have wine and no food, I'm like, for real? Like,
what are we doing here? What are we doing?
I love. I think that's really on brand for both of us. Is like at some point during every trip, I am going to ask, "What are we doing here?" I don't say it to myself. I say it out loud, like I'm pissed.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I feel like when people are like, oh my gosh, me too. That's what you want for like,
Yes.
for people to have that reaction to both you and your brand. Like, oh my gosh, she's speaking my language. Huh. And, it's not that I can't give you the world's best wine tour in,
Yes.
Stellenbosch or what have you. But I'm also going to like high five you for knowing, this is
Knowing
actually what you're going to
yourself. That's
enjoy
I
and
think that's
that.
yeah. That's the beautiful part of the experience is that I think both you and I, because we're willing to admit some of these things, that it gives others permission to be like, oh yeah, actually, like when people tell me they love food, like that they're foodies, my first question to them is like, do you like cooking food or do you like eating food?
Yeah.
And I would say 75% are like, just we just want to eat the food. Like no cooking classes, thank you. Because the vast majority of DMCs, if you'll say like these folks really love all things culinary or food or whatever, they're going to put a cooking class in there.
Yeah. And they're
And
like,
not
I
all
don't
clients have the courage to really
yeah.
admit that they're not interested in learning how to cook, right? Or I'll ask clients like, "Will you make this when you get home?" And they're like, "No." And then I'm like, "Then don't just you're going to eat the food. You don't
Mhm.
need to learn how to make the food."
100%. So yeah, that's for sure another one. I think I am a big proponent of slow travel. Like I want to be somewhere and be there. I don't feel like I'm missing out because I didn't go to the other places nearby that happened to be convenient if I wanted to add like 4 stops. I could have, but I'm happy with 2.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I want that to like come through, because I feel that the experience that people have when they like settle down and don't have plans every day and can be in a place long enough to be like, I actually enjoy just the atmosphere here. I enjoy being here. And it's fine that I
Exactly.
ran out of like activities to do on the day. All of that is okay. So yeah, I think that there's a way for us to kind of come up with our predictable talking points, have them be consistent, share them or use them ourselves in our content and our strategy when it comes to marketing, so that our brand becomes far more powerful to our audiences, which is
Yep.
hopefully what we're both doing on a consistent basis.
So, yeah, I want to keep brainstorming on these hot takes as we continue, because I think like the more we think about them, the more we'll come up with them.
Yeah.
Because I think you're so right that when you share, when you say something out loud, I'm over here laughing so hard I'm crying because I resonate with what you're saying. Like that's the reaction that we want our audience to have.
Yeah, 100%. And so they don't have to like just be like, it was a seamless experience. I mean, thank you.
Exactly. I'm laughing because we get a lot of those.
We
Like,
do a lot
yeah,
of that.
and I sure hope so. And then I'm also like, and
But what
anything
else?
else?
Yeah. Is that it?
I mean,
Your transfer
yeah.
was on time? That's all you remember?
And it's true that some people like that means everything to them
100%.
because they haven't had that in the past. So like that is still a very, very
Important.
important
Yes.
detail. I'm always just hoping that there's
Yeah.
also
Let's not hang our
something
hat there.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not stopping there. That's not, there's more to us than just seamless on time transfers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this is really exciting. I'm excited to see how this evolves
Yeah.
with both
Same.
of our marketing content. What trips do you have coming up that you're going to be practicing on?
I have nothing in quarter 1, which might change because I'm getting a little antsy. So
What do you
TBD.
got something to celebrate coming up?
I know. Shoot, my birthday is not until
You can
April.
celebrate my birthday. Mine's in March. Go
What can
celebrate
I
my
do?
birthday.
I'm here for you, Whitney.
Happy birthday, Whitney. Cheers. Oh, amazing. Well, I will, hopefully, you'll be seeing South Africa content soon.
Yeah, I look
Like,
forward
you're
to
going
it.
to actually know that I'll be there.
That's my
I
goal.
promise.
You.
I
I love
promise.
it. I love it. I love that for you.
Awesome. Well, good chatting with you. See you
Yes.
next month.
All right. We'll see you next month, guys.
Bye.
Bye.